The sixth-generation Mitsubishi Mirage has been in production for over 10 years, and by now, we have plenty of data to understand how reliable this car really is. Today, we'll take a closer look at its technical side and find out why so many owners are willing to overlook the downsides of Mitsubishi's small engine. We'll dive into real owner reviews from online forums and compare their experiences with what mechanics are seeing in the shop. This is the Long Last channel, and let's take a ride. The sixth-generation Mitsubishi Mirage returned to the US market in 2014, targeting the subcompact segment with ultra-affordable pricing. While the Mirage was known as one of the cheapest cars in America, it faced criticism for its weak performance, noisy ride, and bare-bones interior. Still, it found a loyal audience among buyers looking for a low price, excellent fuel economy, and minimal running costs. In 2017, the Mirage received its first facelift, along with the introduction of a sedan version called the Mirage G4. Most of the changes over the years, including the latest refresh in 2021, were mostly cosmetic. The core mechanical components, such as the 1.2-liter engine and transmission options, remained essentially unchanged. In 2023, Mitsubishi Motors North America officially announced that production of the Mitsubishi Mirage would end for the US market in 2025. That means 2024 marks the final full model year for this subcompact car. So, is it worth taking the opportunity to grab one before it's gone? Let's break it down. These days, small displacement engines often raise concerns among buyers, and it's not hard to see why. In the push for better fuel efficiency and performance, manufacturers are increasingly pushing these motors to their limits, which naturally takes a toll on reliability. But does that mean you should be wary of small engines? Definitely not. Even today, there are manufacturers that know how to build compact yet reliable power plants. And the sixth-generation Mirage is a perfect example of that. Under the hood of the Mirage, you'll find two options: a 1.0-liter 3A90 and a 1.2-liter 3A92. There aren't many user reports about the 1.0-liter engine, but it has seen some distribution in Asia and Europe. Overall, it hasn't been associated with many serious issues. However, some versions have experienced severe carbon buildup on the intake valves for unknown reasons, despite the engine not using direct fuel injection. Both versions, with and without EGR, were equally affected. A German owner reported that compression in the cylinders dropped and the engine refused to start. Since fuel quality in Germany is generally high, this issue appears to be more of an anomaly. The exact cause of this motor behavior remains unclear to this day, but that's not the engine most of us will be dealing with. Our main focus, however, should be on the second engine, the 1.2-liter, as this is the engine that has been used in all Mirage models sold in the US throughout its entire production run. The engine features an extremely simple design with 3 cylinders and dual overhead camshafts. It uses conventional port fuel injection, which eliminates the common issue of carbon buildup on intake valves seen in modern direct injection motors. Of course, Mitsubishi's signature MyVec variable valve timing system is also present. The engine runs well on regular 87 gasoline and is not prone to detonation. When it comes to issues, the 3A92 has generally proven to be a reliable power plant. That said, there are a few points worth mentioning. Some of the earliest models experienced mechanical knocking, primarily affecting 2014 to 2015 units, especially those operated in colder climates. Cold starts combined with overly rich fuel mixtures during winter conditions could wash oil off the cylinder walls and dilute the engine oil, Many engines were replaced under warranty, and Mitsubishi also issued recall campaigns to update the ECU software. Another common issue is fuel flooding during cold starts. This typically happens to vehicles that have been sitting in freezing conditions for an extended period. While it's more common in older engines, it can also occur in newer vehicles. The problem stems from the engine injecting too much fuel into the combustion chamber during startup to help the engine warm up faster. If the engine is shut off too soon or doesn't have enough time to reach operating temperature, it may become difficult or even impossible to restart. There are a few ways to deal with this issue. One method is to try starting the engine with the accelerator pedal fully depressed. This sometimes helps clear the excess fuel. However, if the engine is badly flooded, that trick might not work, and you'll likely need to disable the fuel pump to get it started. A detailed explanation of this fix, including how to disable the fuel pump, is available on the Turd, Pails, and Trails YouTube channel. If you own or are considering a Mitsubishi Mirage, this channel is a great resource. The creator has extensive hands-on experience working on Mirages, and you'll find lots of useful tips and repair insights there. A link will be provided in the video description. On some models, a small amount of oil consumption may occur after 100,000 miles, typically between a quarter and a half quart every 3,000 miles, which is considered normal. It's also important to monitor coolant levels, as the heater core may be leaking, leading to engine overheating. Excessive oil consumption is often the result of engine overheating. Overall, the engine performs reliably, and most issues are the result of poor maintenance rather than design flaws. Well-maintained Mirages with regular oil changes tend to run for a long time without major problems. It's also worth noting that while the motor has a solid original design, Mitsubishi engineers still saw room for improvement. As a result, many key internal components were revised and upgraded during the 2017 facelift. A link to all the engine updates will be provided in the description. Yes, it's still the 3A92, but due to the internal changes, it's listed under a different engine code in the parts catalog. As a result, many components may differ significantly from the original version, so it's important to keep that in mind when ordering replacement parts. Of course, when discussing the reliability of the 6th generation Mitsubishi Mirage, it's hard to avoid the topic of its CVT. In this case, the Mirage came equipped with a JF015E unit, developed by Jatco. This transition saw widespread use across the Renault-Nissan alliance, having been originally designed for front-wheel drive compact cars, with engines ranging from 1.2 to 1.8 liters. Exactly the kind of vehicles the alliance produced in large volumes. What makes this CVT stand out is its two-stage setup. It uses a pair of forward gear ratios, which allow the pulley cones to be smaller, while still achieving an impressive 1:7 overall gear ratio. This configuration also helps the cones avoid their most vulnerable zones, near the shaft and outer edges, where belt slippage typically occurs. Since the cones are both the most expensive and failure-prone part of a CVT, this layout promised not only reduced size and cost, but also greater durability. That was the idea on paper. In reality, however, certain internal components proved to be weak links, often leading to breakdowns, even at relatively low mileage. One of the most common issues is undoubtedly the weak ball bearing on the input shaft. It endures a significant amount of stress, and sooner or later, it simply fails. Typically, a worn-out bearing starts making a whining noise while idling, but the noise often disappears when the car is in drive. These symptoms should never be ignored. Any unusual sounds should prompt an immediate visit to a service center. Over time, this problem became well known, and starting around the mid-2010s, the manufacturer began installing roller bearings instead of ball bearings on some models, which significantly improved durability. However, not all vehicles received this upgrade. Some continued to use the older ball bearings design. Unfortunately, the Mitsubishi Mirage appears to be one of them. So if you're facing a CVT repair, it's a good idea to take the opportunity to replace the problematic bearing with a stronger, upgraded version. Here's another common issue with these CVTs: a broken sun gear. When it fails, the car simply refuses to move forward, but reverse still works just fine. So what's going on? Basically, even mild vibrations from aggressive takeoffs can quickly destroy this part. Some drivers manage to kill it within just a couple of years, and because of that, many mechanics only offer a 1-week warranty on the rebuild, just to be safe. Now, the good news. Starting around 2015, a reinforced version of the sun gear became available. Shops that specialize in Jatco CVT repairs know exactly what it is. This upgraded part has much thicker metal in the critical area, and if you take a close look, you'll even see machining marks, just like in the video. Installing this reinforced part completely solves the problem. One common issue with these transmissions is fluctuating RPMs. This is usually caused by metal debris in the valve body, which clogs the solenoids and prevents proper operation. The JF015E CVT is highly sensitive to sudden or heavy loads. Aggressive driving puts excessive stress on the belt, leading to wear and metal shavings. Early versions used a less durable belt, which was often the main source of debris. Jatco later introduced a reinforced belt that performs significantly better, but you need to know the correct part number to avoid installing the older version. Even minor wheel slip in snow can start damaging the belt grooves and pulley surfaces. The resulting wear particles first collect in the valve body and, if ignored, eventually settle in the transmission pan. According to technicians specializing in the JF015, if the magnetic drain plug shows a large buildup of metal fuzz, the transmission likely needs a full rebuild or replacement. In such cases, basic repairs are no longer effective. That's why early diagnosis of CVT issues is so important. Some owners notice irregular behavior, remove the transmission pan, and seeing no metal on the magnets, assume everything is fine and just replace the fluid. But clean magnets don't always mean the transmission is healthy. If jerking or RPM fluctuations continue despite clean magnets, it likely means the valve body is already clogged with debris. In most cases, technicians won't recommend cleaning the solenoids, as this only provides a short-term fix and can't be guaranteed. Instead, they typically suggest replacing the entire valve body. If metal debris reaches the torque converter, the oversized pump flow control valve often gets damaged due to scoring. The vane-type pump generates very high pressure, and over time, the valve can shift unevenly against the housing wall, especially in dirty fluid, leading to wear, looseness, and sticking, which results in poor pressure regulation. If caught early, replacing just the valve is usually enough, but in more severe cases, the entire pump assembly must be replaced. As a preventative measure, technicians recommend replacing the valve every 60,000 miles. After reviewing the potential issues that can occur with the JF015, it might seem like buying a vehicle equipped with this transmission isn't the best idea. However, things aren't as clear-cut as they may appear at first glance. When looking at owner reviews and feedback from mechanics who specialize in the Mitsubishi Mirage, most comments sound more like praise than criticism. It's not uncommon to see these transmissions last well over 200,000 miles, and with regular maintenance, even higher mileage is achievable. This raises a valid question. Why are forums for early Nissan Juke and Qashqai models filled with complaints about the JF015, while issues with the Mirage are reported far less frequently and usually only after much higher mileage? It might be Mitsubishi's magic, but more likely, one of the key factors behind this reliability is vehicle weight. The Mirage is one of the lightest vehicles to use this CVT. Even in its heaviest trim, curb weight doesn't exceed 1 metric ton. In contrast, many crossovers equipped with the same transmission weigh up to 1,400 kilograms, over 3,000 pounds, placing significantly more strain on the CVT. Mechanics who specialize in servicing this CVT recommend performing a partial fluid change every 20 to 30,000 miles. along with replacing the fine filter. The coarse filter, a metal screen type, is typically replaced only during a full transmission rebuild. Q8 branded NS3 fluid has received positive feedback, though NS2 is acceptable in certain cases, depending on the application. Always keep in mind that this transmission is designed primarily for city driving, and aggressive driving that leads to overheating is unnecessary and harmful. If you plan to keep your Mirage for many years, installing an auxiliary transmission cooler is highly recommended. In summary, following these maintenance and driving guidelines can significantly extend the life of the CVT, and with a few durability upgrades, it can become a truly reliable unit. However, for those who prefer a low-maintenance option, there is another alternative. This option is a much easier to maintain 5-speed manual transmission. Developed by Aisin, it was installed in many small displacement cars across Europe and Asia, including models like the Toyota Aygo. This gearbox has earned a reputation for being exceptionally durable. Probably the only thing manual transmission owners might complain about is the clutch cable. Around 100,000 miles, it can snap and will need to be replaced. The main symptom? You'll know when your clutch pedal suddenly drops to the floor. Replacement is straightforward and can be done fairly quickly. With a basic set of tools, it's a DIY job you can handle in your own garage. Under normal driving conditions, the clutch itself typically won't need replacing before 150,000 miles. Other than that, the manual transmission has proven to be very reliable. When it comes to the suspension, special attention should be paid to the torsion beam. Mitsubishi Mirage vehicles, including the G4 sedan, from model years 2014 to 2015, have a widespread issue with the rear suspension related to incorrect rear wheel alignment, specifically the camber and toe angles. The problem lies in the use of a rigid torsion-beamed rear axle assembly, with stub axles welded at each end at the factory. Even a slight misalignment during welding can cause improper rear geometry. The issue may not be immediately noticeable. The car may drive straight, the steering wheel may appear centered, and the tire wear may seem even. However, alignment checks often reveal deviations, especially in the toe angle. Driving long-term with such misalignment leads to rapid rear tire wear. The original rear axle had the part number 4120A139. It is considered defective and subject to replacement. In 2017, with the arrival of the facelift, the axle beam was redesigned again, and it seems that the latest version turned out to be the most successful. Problems with the camber and toe alignment have since become much less common. The Mirage doesn't have a rear sway bar, and the front one is quite small, so body roll is definitely noticeable. It's manageable, but many owners mention it as a downside. Other than that, the suspension holds up very well. Ball joints and tie rods typically last well over 180,000 miles, and the same goes for the struts and shocks. If you live in a state where roads are treated with de-icing chemicals during the winter, it's a good idea to invest in additional rust protection. Unfortunately, at this price point, you can't really expect high-quality factory corrosion resistance. The rear shock bolts often rust so badly that they seize to the bushings and eventually have to be cut off. A good rust-proofing treatment will definitely pay off in the long run. Another positive is that on models built after 2017, the catalytic converter is integrated into the exhaust manifold, so you don't really have to worry about it being stolen. It's mounted deep in the engine bay and hard to access. The interior won't impress anyone with elegance, but people don't buy these cars to show off. That said, the interior materials could be better. Worn-out seats are a common issue. The electronics are generally reliable, but there are a few minor issues that are worth being aware of. These were explained in detail in a video by the creator of the Turd, Pails, and Trails channel, which we've already mentioned. The 6th generation Mirage turned out to be a truly successful model. All of its main issues can't really be called critical, since even the CVT, which was expected to be the model's Achilles heel, often proves to have excellent longevity. On top of that, The manufacturer put real effort into addressing existing shortcomings and refining the design. As a result, starting from the 2017 facelift, it's genuinely hard to find fault with the car.